All right, let's see here. Let's get everything positioned. And here we are again. Today is October the 19th of 2025. I'm Jay Essen. I hope the frights of fall have not been too spooky for you so far. We are homing in on the Halloween ever closer, but today we are on the third of the four extant Castle Balderstone games. This one is several other tales from Castle Balderstone. There's this whole pattern of four games currently existing kind of reminds me of those Japanese Forkoma comics, how they first have the original concept, and then they present an evolution of that concept, and then they tweak it in some way, they subvert it or twist it unexpectedly, and then they present the conclusion in response to that subversion. So, based on our previous exposures, Castle Balderstone was a very straightforward. Here is the castle. Here is a series of four stories, one by Allison Chase, which has more of a formal experimentation than it is just like a complete exploration of a story concept compared to the other three. Same thing with additional tales from Castle Balderstone. It was further exploration of that idea, just additional, like we're doing it, but we're doing it again. We're doing it more so. Very much like the only real change from the previous formula was the interruption by the ousted author who demanded to be heard and then was run off by the other authors. So based on this pattern, I wonder if several other tales from Castle Balderstone is going to subvert this formula further in some unexpected way. I can say from experience that it kind of does, yes, though not to the degree of even some more tales from Castle Balderstone. This is still another in the games that I have played through in its entirety myself already. Even Some More Tales is the one that I have not played all of the games. There's at least two games that I haven't really played myself in that one, but this one should be familiar. And though it is longer than the previous two, I do think I will still be able to get through it in a single sitting. So let's find out. So, resuming. Good evening again. My name, as you well know, is Ryan Veeder. It is once again my great pleasure in this festive and frightening season to welcome you for a third time to Castle Balderstone, America's legendary hotbed of horror, a treasure trove of the morose, macabre, and monstrous. Its crooked pinnacles continue to slash blasphemously against ever-present clouds. Its grim silhouette continues to be a stain of absolute blackness in the midst of a black sky. This year, as they did last year, and the year before that, and so on, the greatest spookcrafters working in the English language have assembled in Castle Balderstone's drafty halls to test their latest material on the only audience possessed of hearts so inured to terror as to withstand the absolute scariest stories, each other. Tonight, for the third time, you are my +1 to this wedding of the weird and the wicked. As we ascend once more the winding stairs of Castle Balderstone, the wind outside howls in warning, and the temperature drops until your teeth chatter in the cold. Or is it in recollection of the horrors you witnessed here 1 year ago, or 2 years ago? We trudge again through antique galleries, across musty hallways, and down forgotten corridors. The occasional window offers no view of a friendly outside world, but of walls, towers, and perilously pitched roofs, confirming what your aching legs and ragged breath have already predicted, that the labyrinthine architecture of Castle Balderstone is one you can never hope to escape. Nevertheless, we continue on, through another creaking door, and into a warm sitting room, where velvet couches sit in a circle near a roaring fire. The walls are lined with bookshelves, stacked with titles you recognize as those you have never been brave enough to read. You recognize the occupants of the couches as well. Murder mongers, evil experts, ghost gurus, monster maestros, vampire virtuosos, and dread distributors. These are the infamous authors of Castle Balderstone, and you are their latest victim again. Apparently, we are the last ones to arrive again, so we take our seats in a conspicuous display of embarrassed hurriedness and loudly whispered apologies. Eventually, the chamber quietens itself, and we realize we are about to enjoy the first tale of the evening. Hold on. Somebody is looking at us, giving us the hairy eyeball. Who the heck is this guy, and what the heck is his problem? Hello, I say, sounding very tough and cool. Who are you exactly? I'm Thomas Ligotti. Who is that with you? The guy asks. He's talking about you. This is my guest, the same guest I brought in 2018 and 2019. I don't think we're allowed to bring guests, someone else adds, unhelpfully. Well, it's never been a problem before, so let's just move on. I wave at the moderator to let the next author start reading. But the moderator shakes his head. The Convocation at Castle Balderstone is a place for the world's foremost authors of horror to share their work with each other. The charter does not allow for visiting observers. Now, if your guest were prepared to present a horror story, that would be a different matter. The other authors start murmuring in agreement. Looks like we're up against the wall on this one. Dang. Okay, I've got an idea. As a matter of fact, my guest is prepared to present a horror story, actually. We just need to get psyched up first. So we'll just step out into the hallway for a moment, if you don't mind. Press any key to step out into the hallway with me. Musty hallway. A damp passageway lit only by the firelight from within the library and occasional flashes of lightning. Okay, don't panic. We just have to come up with some ideas. I mean, you have to come up with some ideas. I've got a pretty good outline we can use, but you'll need to supply the specifics. There's no rush on any of this. Take as long as you want. But I don't know if undo is going to work during this part, so try and get everything right the first time. First, give me a girl's name like Wendy. Well, I should come up with a name to use for this, but for the purposes of this game, let's say Jocelyn. Sure. Now I need an inanimate natural object, like fallen log. Well, an inanimate natural object. Let's use perhaps I don't know if a geoform is going to be appropriate. I was going to try and use like crevice or hollow, but let's instead just stick with a very simple and straightforward geode. Next, something that has wheels, but not a car. Okay, something that has wheels that is not a car. I presume things like a bus or a train are going to be out of the question. Something with wheels. Obvious answers would be things like bicycle or wheelbarrow. Perhaps let's choose wagon. Okay, an adjective next. Something that you'd apply to something creepy. Perhaps unnerving. Another noun. An innocuous object that's small enough to carry around, but big enough that you wouldn't lose it easily. Okay. Something small enough to carry around, but big enough you wouldn't lose it easily. Tennis racket, perhaps. Okay. How about, I probably should have spelled it R-A-C-Q-U-E-T, but, you know, we're in it now. How about an adjective for something old? Antiquated? That works fine. Next, give me a job title that's respectable but not impressive. A job title that's respectable but not impressive. Like superintendent? Really? Okay. Now, this one is important. A creepy location. A place where you feel uncomfortable. Okay. Internet cafe. Great. Okay. Now I need a small object that can pick a lock. You mean like a lockpick? A hairpin? Perhaps a conspicuously shaped toothpick? How about an adjective that means nice, as in a nice person? Let's say genuine? And now a horrifying object, something that's smaller than a tennis racket. A tennis ball-sized ghost. Cool. Next, I need an adjective that you associate with boring people. Long-winded. Next, a dangerous household object. Well, what we use to cut open all our packages is a box cutter. And a largish container, like a suitcase or a treasure chest. Well, how about a largish container? I have here plastic bin. A cute dessert. Gelato. Okay, here's a fun one. A substance or material that is typically dry. How about flour? How about what is the most boring U.S. state? Or just name a boring location, I guess. I'm going to go with North Dakota. An ominous adjective. Ooh, ominous adjective. Let's go with why am I having trouble thinking of words aside from ominous? Looming. An adjective that you find desirable in a person, like artistic or rich. I guess it would be silly to do genuine again. Let's say contemplative. A tiny cute animal, something that fits in your hand. Like a frog. A type of metal. Copper. A body part. Fibula. An upsetting color. An upsetting color? Like, pale green? Or brown? No. Red? I don't find color itself very upsetting, but I guess that's the challenge of the prompt. Let's say chartreuse. Is that how you spell chartreuse? An adjective that you'd use to describe a fluid. Viscous. A smallish container, something that would fit in a drawer. Like, an envelope? I don't know if that's quite what they have in mind, but we'll say an envelope. Okay, just a couple more details. What name should we credit you with as the author of this story? J. Essen. Finally, give me any 4 words from a nursery rhyme or poem or something like that. Don't overthink this. Trust me. Mary had a little lamb whose fleece was white as snow. Perfect. Awesome. We can work with this. Absolutely. Press any key to head back into the library. Okay. Back to the library. The authors have started chatting with each other in our absence, but they get really quiet when they see us come in. They're all looking at you expectantly. Don't worry, you're going to do great. The moderator clears his throat. Well, this wasn't on the schedule, but appears that we now have a story from J. Essen. Oh my gosh, he cannot deal with the fact that I called his bluff. I mean, we called his bluff, obviously, together. Now get up there and knock him dead. Ryan Veeder presents Was White as Snow by J. Essen. Release 1, serial number 201031, Inform 7, build 6M62, I6/V6.34, library 6/12N, SD. Internet Cafe. Jocelyn finds herself in an internet cafe. There's an oddly looming energy in the air. Somehow she has the feeling that she has been here before. There is a plastic bin here, which isn't that strange. The presence of a geode is somewhat more unusual. Examine geode. Jocelyn frowns as she inspects the geode. It's odd enough to see a geode in an internet cafe, but this one has a keyhole in it. Take geode. Taken. A creaking noise reaches her ears from far away. Examine bin. It's a perfectly normal plastic bin, or it looks perfectly normal. The creaking noise is getting closer. I'd just like to draw attention to the fact that that is a really cool technique that he's able to use the entire phrase a plastic bin as the name of an object, but also then pull out the individual words that comprise it as meaningful descriptions of that object. That is some talented programming. That I appreciate that. That is an impressive use of Inform. Let's open bin. She opens the plastic bin, revealing a tennis racket. A wagon rolls into view, its wheels creaking noisily. Hey there, Gelato, the wagon says. You're looking good. Jocelyn backs away slowly. Take tennis racket. She picks up the tennis racket, revealing a tennis ball-sized ghost. What's wrong? The wagon asks in a creaking voice. It keeps coming closer. Jocelyn keeps backing away. Why don't you like me anymore? What did I do? Out? But she isn't in anything at the moment. Don't be mean to me, the wagon pleads. I don't want you to be mean. Jocelyn reaches behind herself. Her hand finds a box cutter. Show box cutter to wagon. You can only do that to something animate. This wagon seems pretty animate to me. Attack wagon. Jocelyn swings the box cutter down on the wagon. The thing splits down the middle and bursts open. A flood of wet flour flows out of the crumpled husk. She holds her breath, waiting for the wagon and its horrible fibula to start moving again. But it's gone. Now there's only flour oozing everywhere. Search flour. She finds nothing of interest. Look. Jocelyn is standing in an internet cafe. There's an oddly looming energy in the air. Somehow she has the feeling that she has been here before. There is a plastic bin. She can also see a husk and a flower here. Examine husk. She doesn't want to touch that. Examine the flower. She kneels down to inspect the slimy flower. Something in there is moving. It pops out, a tiny frog covered in viscous fluids. The little frog coughs miserably. Take frog. Jocelyn picks up the poor wet frog and strokes its back. The creature is in distress. There's something caught in its throat. The frog coughs up a copper key. Now it's feeling better. Take key. She already has that. Unlock geode with copper key. She unlocks the geode. Examine geode. Geode frowns as she inspects the geode. It's odd enough to see a geode in an internet cafe, but this one has a keyhole in it. Open it. She pries the geode open. There's a dark space inside. That's typical of geodes, I suppose. And an unnerving voice floats out from the darkness. Come on, Jocelyn. It's time. The dark space seems vast enough to swallow her completely. Enter geode. She climbs into the geode. She's engulfed by darkness. She wakes up. Room. She is in a room with chartreuse walls. There is a bed here and a bedside table. There is a door, and high on the wall is an antiquated intercom. The intercom buzzes, and a man's long-winded voice fills the room. Any changes? It asks. No, she says. It was the same dream again. Exactly the same. The long-winded voice grunts, disappointed. Listen, she hears nothing unexpected. Well, we'll try again in a few hours, says the long-winded voice. In the meantime... But another voice comes on. Is my wife in there? Is that my wife? Look. Bed here and a bedside table, door on high on the wall, antiquated intercom. We don't allow visitors, the long-winded voice says. But the other voice shrieks, you have to let her out. Let her out now. Jocelyn, can you hear me? Get out of there. Get out. The intercom goes dead. Examine bedside table. It has one drawer. There's a noise outside the door. Somebody is trying to get in. Jocelyn, it's locked. Can you open it from in there? Come on, Jocelyn, we're going home. Open drawer. She opens the drawer, revealing an envelope. Whoever's outside is still trying to open the door without success. Look in envelope. She can't see inside since the envelope is closed. The guards will be here soon. Open envelope. She opens the envelope, revealing a conspicuously shaped toothpick. I got a little bit fast and loose with the articles there. That was unnecessary. Jocelyn, the voice outside cries, please, open the door. Take toothpick. Whoever's outside is still trying to open the door without success. Pick lock with toothpick. Pick heavy door. Open door. The heavy door seems to be locked. Unlock heavy door with toothpick. She presses the conspicuously shaped toothpick into the lock and wiggles it back and forth desperately. She has no idea what she's doing, but the lock clicks. Jocelyn, the voice outside cries, please, open the door. Open the door. She opens the door. The room fills with light. As she looks outside, her throat tightens. She can't say anything. She can't scream. Standing in the hallway is the wagon, its vestigial fibula twitching in excitement. Come on, Gelato, it creaks. Let's get out of here. The end. Frightful. The room is silent. Your heart sinks. Your story has provoked no reaction at all. But as you look across your audience, you realize there has indeed been a reaction, one of desperate, speechless horror. The author's mouths hang open. Their eyes stare into the middle distance. That guy who was bothering us before is twitching a little. The moderator steps onto the dais. Thank you, J. Essen, he says. Hey, you even scared the moderator. I've never seen that before. I think we can all agree that was, he swallows, a contribution worthy of our convocation. Certainly. Are there any questions for our author? Nobody can get it together enough to say anything. There is a long pause. A very long pause. You return to your seat next to me. Now it is time for the next author to step forward and share the next of the evening's unbearable entertainments. It is Antonio F. Karnak, who presented that Failglass story a year ago. 2 years ago? Antonio's reputation is such that his fellow authors begin applauding before he can start talking. He's been a big deal on the horror scene since the 80s, when he wrote that dark urban fantasy series about Marshall Trevino. Then in the 90s, he got tired of that and started writing in other settings, which nobody liked, because they just wanted more Trevino stories. So in the 2000s, he went back to writing Trevino stories, which nobody liked because they weren't the old Trevino stories. So in the 2010s, he went back to writing other stuff, and people liked that because... I'm not sure. I guess because he's a good writer. But now it's 2020. What will Karnak's next move be? I have a new story for you all, he intones. A story from the world of Marshall Trevino and the Department of Human Welfare. Every author leans forward. The story does not deal with Trevino directly, but with a new character, a kindred spirit, I think. The authors settle back into their seats a little. His name is Christopher Gill, and he is no marshal for the Department of Human Welfare, but a mere health inspector. He carries a clipboard, and but I should let him speak for himself. Antonio opens his notebook and begins to read. Ryan Veters presents A Nice Drive, a new story from Antonio F. Karnak's Marshall Trevino universe. Release 1, serial number 2101031, in Form 7, Build 6M62, in Form 6, version 6.34, Library 6/12N SD. Parking lot. Right when I got out of the car, I felt this warm wind coming over the countryside. It smelled like hog feces. I hate the Midwest, to be honest, especially in the summer. The entrance to the Bell Landing convenience store stood to the northeast. Right outside there was this filthy trash can overflowing with garbage. A vague sort of path led around the building to the northwest. Something I forgot to do earlier, let's type about. Pardon me. This entry in Ectocomp 2020 is brought to you by the generous support of many wonderful Patreon backers. Carl Muckenhaupt, Carolyn Van Esseltine, Kat Manning, Q Fever, Zachary Dillon, Doug Orleans, Janice M. Eisen, Emily Bokheim, Emily Short, Rapscallion, Greg Frost, Yerrick, Ivan R. Silent Fountain, Jason McIntosh. Those were not necessarily the same name. Josh LaBelle, Jordan J. Ish, Carl Ove Hooftammer, Kenneth Hahn, Lance Campbell, Jenny Polodna, Mark Vian, Matt Schneider, Michael Knowles, Michael Ziegler, Derek Sotak, Nils Figerberg, Rich Chang, Paul Stanley, Qualish, Catherine O'Sullivan, Janelle Marie. Gosh, this is a lot of people. I feel like I've been typing for a while. Robert Palutzian, Robin Johnson, Sarah Nerboso, Robert Egglestone, Matthew Zimmerman, Alan Tan, Sammy Elbarawi, Jacques Frichet. Phew, thanks guys. This is the third Castle Balderstone game. The previous entries in the series are on IFDB at this web address, and this other web address. If you're interested in my other games or the other stuff I do, my website is rcveter.net, my Twitter is @rcveter, my email address is rcveter@me.com, and my Patreon is patreon.com/rcveter. Okay, bye. Let's examine me. Something I forgot to do is Jocelyn, something you'll just have to do for yourself when you inevitably play this game. My name is Chris Gill. I work for the health department. I remember that on the night in question, I hadn't shaved in a while. Health inspectors aren't supposed to have any stubble, but out on the road, I could get away with that sort of thing. Inventory. I was carrying my citation pad. I examined the pad. We carried around these pads of citation paperwork that looked like they had been mimeographed in the 70s. It was carbonless copy paper, if you remember what that is. I was supposed to make a note of all the violations I saw, and, depending on what I noted, I was empowered to issue a warning, or, in extreme circumstances, a citation. A citation was a lot more paperwork. Let's look. Okay, the entrance to the Bell Landing convenience store stood to the northeast. Right outside there was this filthy trash can overflowing with garbage. A vague sort of path led around the building to the northwest. My car looked awful inviting, but I couldn't leave quite yet. Examine the car. I remember that car. I remember when I started working for the health department, there was some sticker on there that my boss said wasn't appropriate for a vehicle I'd be driving around for my job, and he made me tear it off. But it didn't come off all the way, so there was this scrap left stuck to the bumper, like an adhesive scar. I examined the scrap. It was torn off enough that you couldn't read any of it. I don't really remember what the sticker originally said. I don't think it was anything offensive or even interesting, just too informal for government work. When I ended up selling that car, that scrap was still stuck on the bumper. Let's examine the trash. A trash can in a high-traffic area like that has to be emptied a few times a day. This one hadn't been emptied that day. It hadn't been emptied the day before either. There was a little mountain of trash forming around it. Note trash on pad. Okay, note trash. I definitely wrote down something about the garbage can. I probably used the words mountain of trash. Let's go around the side first, northwest. Field. There was a big field of grass around the side of the store. The grass was wet, and it kind of glistened under the stars. I tried not to pay too much attention to the stars. I came up to where there was a spotlight stuck in the ground, pointing at this big windmill to the northeast. The path back to the store entrance was southeast from there. There was a rabbit sitting there, twitching and blinking, trying to figure out if I'd seen it yet. Examine the rabbit. It was just a dark shape in the grass, but I could tell that it was a rabbit. Examine the grass. That noun is not implemented. Oh my goodness. What an overlooked... Examine field. That noun is not implemented. Holy smokes. We are in the lackadaisical times, apparently. Let's go back to the southeast. Let's examine the door. There were streaks on the glass door, the kind of residue that makes you think, oh sure, someone did try to clean this at some point. It almost made the place look abandoned. Note streaks. I made a note of the dirty window. I wrote, dirty window, or something like that. In. Entryway. The convenience store was set up so you'd have to walk through this gallery of snacks and tchotchkes and stuff on your way in and out. Usually you want the counter to be closer to the door, but I don't know, this is how this place was set up. The counter was over to the northeast. But the first thing I noticed was this slimy stuff on the floor. I examined the slime. Kind of a beige puree of something was smeared over the floor. I remember trying to determine whether it was coming or going, if you get what I mean. Whether the direction of the smear was toward the door or the counter, but I couldn't figure it out. Note smear. Note slime. I noted that they needed to clean up the mess in the entryway, or at least put a wet floor sign out. Examine snacks. Bags of peanuts and chips and candy. Normal convenience store stuff. Let's examine the tchotchkes. I remember there was a rack of mugs and shirts and dish towels with cute sayings on them. There was the typical serenity to accept the things I cannot change stuff, and then there was some really odd stuff. All men are not created equal, only the finest become police. Or, time to turn up the beat. I tried to retire, but now I work for my wife. So, not really a single unifying theme. Kinda odd. Let's go northeast to the counter. Counter. The counter was at the center of the building, and there were wings off to the northeast, southeast, and southwest. There was a door in the northwest next to a huge mirror. The counter was unattended, unless you count the giant spider that was sitting on it. Examine spider. I'm not kidding. It was the size of a baseball mitt. I freaked out a little. Note spider. I didn't have the presence of mind to write something at the time, but later on I did make a note. There is a spider the size of my hand somewhere around your cash register. Get it out of there. Something along those lines. Okay, well, let's look at this mirror. The mirror took up as much of the wall as possible. I remember it was really clean, unlike everything else in that place. I could see the spider's reflection in the mirror, and that scared me a second time. Curious. Let's check out these various wings. We got wings to the northeast, southeast, and southwest. Isn't the southwest back where the entrance was? I think so. Let's go southeast then. To the figurines. This one corner of the store was completely devoted to cute little figurines. The shelves were stacked with them. I could see the counter to the northwest. There was still nobody there. Examine figurines. I guess cute is the wrong word. They were supposed to be graceful and beautiful. Willowy mothers holding willowy daughters, angels in long flowing robes. None of the figurines had faces, just blank heads, but you could infer they were supposed to have beatific expressions. When I looked closely, I noticed there were dozens of tiny spiders skittering up and down the figurines. Note tiny spiders. I wrote down spider infestation, with no other details or instructions, because what more do you need to say? Let's go northwest to the counter, and northwest again. Oh, that's to the door. Let's go northeast instead, to the food court. The food court was disgusting. There were more drops of that slime on the floor and smears of pizza sauce over the walls. There was a kid slumped over on one of the tables. He had one of those visors on, so I assumed he was an employee. Nobody was on duty at the cash register, and of course the counter to the southwest was still unattended. Examine kid. He was kind of draped over the table with his eyes closed. His skin was pale, and his mouth was hanging open, and he was so skinny. He looked malnourished, maybe dehydrated. Really strung out, to be honest. But this was some teen. Kids aren't supposed to work 15-hour shifts and then fall unconscious in the workplace. There was a key sitting on the table next to him. Take key. Examine it. It was a steel key with a round head. Note kid. I probably should have put something in my notes about the scene, but at the time, I guess I didn't know what to say. Examine slime. Little dollops of that same beige-colored slime. For a second, I thought it was vomit, but I don't think it was. Note slime. I noted slime in food court. Floors require cleaning. I didn't note exactly how vile this slime looked. Examine pizza sauce. I know what you're thinking. It really was pizza sauce, though. I can tell the difference. Note pizza sauce. I wrote down, wipe sauce off the walls, with 3 exclamation points, to convey my distaste. Examine register. The LED display on the cash register had the words closed scrolling across it, very slowly. Let's look. Let's examine table. There was a thin layer of crud built up on all of the tables. It wasn't the worst I've ever seen, but it was bad. Note table. I made a note that they had to actually wipe down the tables once in a while. Let's go back to the southwest. We examine the counter itself. I noticed some more of that slime on the edge of the counter, like something had just brushed against it while walking by. There was no one at the cash register, which struck me as a bad idea, but not exactly a health hazard. Note counter. I took a note of this little bit of slime on the counter. Open door. Unlock door with key. I unlock the door. Northwest. First opening the door. Office. The office didn't match the rest of the place at all. It was nicer than my boss's office. There was a wood desk and a filing cabinet built into the wall, and 2 big windows, one in the northwest wall with a view of the field out back, and one in the southwest next to the door with a view of the filthy convenience store. I would have expected the mirror in the southeast, but I don't know. My mental map of this place is not good. Examine northwest window. Examine window. Which do you mean, the northwest window or the southeast window? Okay, so it is a southeast window. That's good. Northwest. Outside you could see the field and the sky and that windmill they'd built behind the store. Okay, fair enough. Examine southeast window. You could keep an eye on everything that was going on in the store from in there, especially as regarded what the person behind the counter was doing. Obviously, the office window was the other side of the mirror behind the counter. I had assumed it was a one-way mirror, but just because it was so impractically large. Let's examine the desk. The top of the desk even had a blotter on it, like this was a CEO's office in the 50s, but there was nothing written on the blotter. Cabinet. The filing cabinet was basically one big drawer built into the wall. I don't know how swanky that sounds when I say it out loud, but it looked really swanky. Open cabinet. I pulled the cabinet open, and imagine my surprise when I saw there were no files in there at all. There was a keychain in there, though. Examine keychain. There was just one key on the chain. I remember thinking it was either a very new key or just a key that rarely got used because the teeth on it were so sharp. It was attached to a plastic key fob thing that I think just had some business's phone number on it. Take keychain. Let's look once more. Okay, yeah, that was pretty much everything. Let's go back out. Southeast. And southwest to the entryway. And then southwest. Northwest, back to the field. Examine sky. My problem is there are too many stars. If you just think about the sun and everything it entails, all the business that goes on in the vicinity of the sun, it's already too much to handle. But when you look up at all those stars, more than you could ever count, well, even if just one of them is as much trouble as our world right here, I guess maybe my problem is that I think too much. Spotlight. A really bright light bolted into a square of concrete in the middle of the field to light up the windmill at night. Let's examine the windmill. It was not a real windmill. There was a wind going, remember? Hog feces. I could still smell it. But the vanes of the windmill weren't moving. It was just for show. Let's examine that. Okay, so... Let's see... Let's go northeast then, to the windmill. Now, I was standing at the foot of the windmill, out of the way of the spotlight. The whole thing was a lot bigger than it had looked from far away. To get back to the store entrance, I'd have to go around to the southwest. Examine windmill. I guess they built it to celebrate the Dutch heritage in the surrounding area, and to attract tourists. It didn't look like a classic windmill, though. It was stumpier, if that makes sense. There was a sort of hatch built into the side, the dark side that the spotlight wasn't pointed at. Examine hatch. Pardon me. It was somewhat smaller than your typical door and kind of rounded at the corners, which is why I call it a hatch rather than a door, but there was a normal handle with a normal keyhole, which made it all that much weirder. Unlock hatch with keychain. I unlock the hatch. Open it. In. Cavity. The floor inside the windmill was just dirt, and the walls were bare plywood. Strands of sticky stuff were hanging from the walls. A guy with 8 legs was hanging from the ceiling. I checked my notebook. "Are you the proprietor?" I asked. "Mr. Lukes?" "Yes. Hello," he said. He didn't seem to mind that I'd barged in on him. "You're Mr. Gill from the health department, right?" I told him I was, and I mentioned I had looked for him in his office, and he said he was sorry he was so hard to find. Talk to Mr. Let's examine him first. Well, his arms, or legs, were covered in brownish bristles. He had big, black, shiny eyes, and his hair was slicked back and shiny. I remember he had something stuck in his mandibles, a chunk of something, and I kept looking at it. I felt like I was being rude, but he didn't seem to notice. Talk to Mr. Lutz. I told him I had my report on his convenience store. "I noticed a few things that need to be addressed," I said, and I rattled off my list. I told him about the giant spider at the front counter. He said, "Oh, he shouldn't be running loose. I'll take care of her." "Oh, she shouldn't be running loose. I'll take care of her." And I nodded and told him to make sure he did that right away. And I told him about the slime everywhere, and he got kind of sheepish. He said his employees left something to be desired as far as attention to detail. So I brought up the kid I saw in the food court. I said, "You wouldn't feed on your employees without a signed release, right?" And he said, "Of course not." He reached up into the rafters, I guess that's where he kept all his files, pulled out a form with the parent's signature, and I said, "Okay, just checking." But I put on my mean guy face, and I said it was still a lot of violations, and the whole operation was not up to the state standards of health and safety. He lowered himself down to my eye level, and he put a claw on my shoulder, and he said, "Mr. Gill, you've caught me on a bad day. I'm short-staffed, and I can't seem to whip these kids into shape. Do you really have to give me a citation?" Well, heck, he's being so considerate and, forthright. He did mess up a fair bit, but we're going to go ahead and just stick with a warning. I said, No, but I do have to issue you a warning." And he made a big show of trying to wipe the sweat from his forehead the way a human would, but his front arm didn't really bend all that way. I checked the warning box on my citation pad, and I signed it, and I tore off his copy. He put the paper between his mandibles to fold it crisply, and then he pulled himself up in the rafters to file it away, up where it was too dark for me to see. Then he lowered himself, and he said, "Thank you." You want to say any pleasantries? We made some small talk. I wasn't in a hurry to be anywhere. Okay, fair enough. Let's go back out. I said I needed to head on to the next stop, and I turned toward the exit. Luke said, "So long. Have a nice drive." And just as the hatch was closing behind me, I called back, "You too." It was mortifying. The end. Everyone applauds, except me. I am wondering, does Karnak have something against the Dutch? "Are there any questions?" the moderator asks. Someone stands up to ask, "The paperwork in your story, which allows an employer to feed on an employee, reminds me of the story Johanna Quinn presented last year." "Not a question, friend." Karnak does a funny little shrug. "I only steal from the best," he says, and everyone laughs. A voice from clear in the back of the room cuts through the good-natured chortling. It's Johanna C. Quinn herself. "Don't worry, Antonio," she cries. "I only steal from the best, too." Everyone also laughs at this, although I'm not sure why. Then we wait a little bit for somebody to say a third witty thing, but nobody can think of anything. Antonio steps down from the dais. Now it is time for the next author to step forward and share the next of the evening's hideous entertainments. It is Elmir Divkovic, who terrifies so many readers with his intricately realized world of vampires. World building gets a bad rap these days, but you know what you get when it's done right? You get an Elmir Divkovic story, that's what. The stories are also very scary, too. That's the main thing. I am honored to return to Balderstone and present another of my vampire tales, Divkovic begins. With my vampire tales, I seek to raise a mirror to human society. My central theme, that of vampires' imvampiricism to vampire, must thrust to the center of the human reader's soul, and convince the reader to overcome those distasteful vampire-like traits lurking within the reader's dark heart. To do this, to pierce the soul, my vampire tales must be both utterly horrifying and utterly believable. Hence, all of my vampire tales are enframed within a single carefully constructed world. The world of vampire tales, I call it. And for this vampire tale, I have written a foreword of sorts, which will acclimate you to my little world before we all forget ourselves and inhabit that world for a few moments. He opens his notebook. The Marquis Semix has long been suspected of dabbling in forbidden melophitic research. He may believe, like so many members of the nobility, that his position will protect him from prosecution. But the orthodoxy knows no rank. The orthodoxy punishes the highborn and the peasantry, vampire citizens and mortal helots alike. It is simply a matter, in dangerous cases like this, of procuring an inquisitor who is equal to the task. Elmir looks up and smiles. He lets it all sink in. And then he turns the page and begins to read. Ryan Veeder presents The Inquisitor Voltrine, a vampire tale by Elmir Divkovic. Release 1, serial number 201031, Inform 7, build 6M62, Inform 6, version 6.34, library 6/12 in SD. Gateway. Grotesques in black and calcite flank the threshold of the Chateau Semix. Chateau Semi? I'm not sure how it's pronounced. I'm just going to stick with Semix for now. Though rain lashes in nearly horizontal torrents, the scarlet-flamed braziers go on burning imperturbably. Exits east. Inventory. You are carrying a silk cape being worn and a white dagger. Examine me. Publicly, the orthodoxy takes pains to assure its subjects that inquisitors are not above the law. This is a pleasant fiction. Inquisitors are empowered to meld the law according to their needs, to invent edicts or forget them at will, so long as it serves the aims of the orthodoxy. In the earliest decades of your career, you availed yourself of these privileges frequently, reveling in the arbitrary power of your position. But a century's experience has demonstrated that an inquisitor need not resort to such inelegances. The true law, unadulterated by situational convenience, is just and complete. It is sufficient in all respects, so long as it is wielded with skill and patience. Thus, it is said privately, and not repeated outside the halls of the orthodoxy, that only the best inquisitors are not above the law. You are the Inquisitor Voltrine, ranked among the best. Examine cape. Your fine silk cape is the unofficial symbol of your position as Inquisitor. You take great pride in the accessory. Examine dagger. This well-trusted blade was a gift from your mentor, High Inquisitor Urimedon. She warned you to use it judiciously, which is not to say she told you never to use it. Its attack power is 1. Okay, so there is a little bit of a crossover here with the tales of Ebenezabeth and her vampire hunting, because Urimedon was, of course, the first vampire that she ever destroyed. So this game is kind of interesting because the rather blatant statement that the dagger has attack power of 1 indicates there's a sort of mathematical element to this, in which we are going to be fighting a progression of enemies, of opponents, whose powers scale and require increasingly powerful weapons to overcome, in a manner that is very reminiscent of your Castlevanias. There are obstacles to surmount and a map that requires us to cross one direction and then recross it in another. So this part may be a little repetitive, but we're going to do our best to get through it as efficiently as possible. So let's examine the grotesques. Which do you mean, the bat-faced grotesque or the fox-headed grotesque? Let's examine bat-faced. A humanoid statue with a bat's pointed ears and a hog-nosed scowl stands guard to the left of the gateway. A fauchard, made of wood and iron, not limestone, is clutched in its claws. Examine fauchard. A polearm with a long, hooked blade. Its attack power is 2. Take it. Let's examine the fox-headed. A statue with a fox head and a fox's smug smile stands guard to the right of the gateway. Its paws are wrapped around a long-bladed guisarme. I'm guessing on the pronunciation of these various polearms. A polearm with a crescent-shaped blade. Its attack power is 2. Take it. What else have we got here? We have braziers. To survive this storm without even flickering in the wind, these must be conjured or illusory flames, but such enchantments are well within the limits of the law. See the rain? It is very unlikely that this intense weather is entirely natural. Examine the chateau. The Chateau Semi is all the more imposing when its towers are lashed by unforgiving rain. At least the front gate is open, and within appears much drier than without. We can't go that way. We can go east, though, to the audience hall. Guests of the Marquis who fail to make a good first impression are flung into the pit that takes up most of this chamber. The Marquis himself is seated in the balcony overhead. "I've been expecting you, Inquisitor," he calls down at you. "Make yourself at home." His laughter seems to echo through all the halls of the chateau. Exits up, east, down, west. A scimitar lies abandoned at the edge of the pit. Examine the scimitar. A curved sword not unlike those you saw employed in the Algerian human uprising a century ago. Its attack power is 2. We'll take that. Let's examine the Marquis. The Marquis, who is so giddy with sadistic triumph at your entrance, now seems for the most part uninterested in your presence. Odd. Can we go up? You could climb up the wall here if only your fingers could get a strong enough grip. Let's go further east to the Great Stair. Velvet spills over the grand stairway in a crimson flood. To the east is a massive wooden door. High on the wall are displayed the arms of the Marquis Semi. Let's examine the arms. The device of Semi. Gules, a unicorn sable-horned oar. Violations of the rule of tincture rest outside an Inquisitor's jurisdiction. Crossed beneath the escutcheon are the poleaxe Thembriod and the longsword Harshek. I examined the first of these. This long-handled axe was wielded by a previous Marquis Semi in the Battle of Noyos. Its attack of Noy? I do not... My guesses on French pronunciation are usually omit the last syllable, whether correct or otherwise, I don't know. But its attack power is 5, so that's fantastic. Let's take it. The weapons are on the wall. The weapons on the wall are too high to reach. Okay, well, let's look at the other one at least. That was the longsword Harshek. This silver-plated sword beheaded the werewolf Cornigule in 1207. Its attack power is 6. We'd like to get those. Let's go east. The huge door seems to be locked. Okay, so we can now go down. You leap down into the pit. You land with a soft grunt. Some indeterminate number of unworthy guests rest at the bottom of this pit, their remains mingled by the depredations of scavengers. Exits are up and east. A shining mace has landed near the center of the pit. Examine the mace. A steel club with a flanged head. Its attack power is 3. I take it. Let's go east to the tunnel. A rough-hewn passage beneath the castle, visited only by the least welcome and most desperate guests of the Marquis. Certain flagstones on the floor are carved with certain strange symbols. We have exits east, down, and west. A monstrous shape scuttles out of the darkness, a hissing stag beetle the size of a tiger. I examine the beetle. This beast must be the prime beneficiary of those morsels resting in the chateau's pit. Unseemly, if not illegal magic, must have been employed for it to grow to such proportions. Inquisitory procedure would recommend, if not require, the creature's extermination. Let's use our scimitar. Attack beetle with scimitar. Oh, well, it survived that, so let's undo that. With a practiced hand, you slice into the giant beetle and deal 2 damage. The force of your blow is enough to snap the blade into 2 pieces of useless steel. The beetle attempts to stab you with its chitinous horn, but only pokes a small hole in your cape. Let's attack the beetle with mace. You slam the mace into the giant beetle. The mace bursts into a cloud of shrapnel, but not before dealing 3 damage. Attack beetle with dagger. Nope. I stab the dagger into the giant beetle, deal 1 damage. The blade shatters. The beetle rushes back at you, but you spin out of the way. Attack beetle with scimitar now. Oop. With a practiced hand, you slice into the giant beetle and deal 2 damage. The force of your blow is enough to snap the blade into 2 pieces of useless steel. The insect offers up one last eerie, crackling cry before exploding into moist dust. Only its horn remains, a spear-like length of deadly chitin. Now, alone in the tunnel, you are able to inspect its dark corners properly. A pair of gloves rests on the floor, perhaps dragged from the pit by that beetle as a bizarre trophy. Let's examine the horn. The horn of a giant stag beetle, as stiff and strong as iron, but as light as cork. Its attack power is 4. Take it. Examine the gloves. These gloves have been fitted with sharp, strong claws. The wearer could keep a firm grip on any number of surfaces. Wear gloves. First taking the clawed gloves, you put on the clawed gloves. Let's look once more. Let's examine these flagstones. A collection of flagstones near the midpoint of the tunnel are each engraved with a symbol. I don't know how to pronounce that symbol. Let's go down. There's no obvious way of moving these flagstones aside, so there's going to be a way to move them with the symbol in some way. Press flagstone. Pressing upon the flagstones has no effect. Let's go east to the crypt. A statue of Eternitas looms over a magnificent ghost glass casket. The high ceiling dances with a glow of candles in the chamber above. The eastern archway is protected by a potent array of sigils. Exits up, east, and west. Let's examine the statue. Eternitas is the sister of death, depicted as a winged skeleton. She holds a metal rod, the symbolism of which has never been made clear to you. Examine the rod. The metal rod is a symbol of Eternitas and a useful weapon. Its attack power is 4. Take it. Let's examine this ghost glass. Ostensibly the resting place of the Marquise, this coffin is clearly intended primarily as decoration. The glasswork is flawless. In the casket are a ruby lens and a gladius. Open coffin. It has no visible hinges or lid. Examine the lens. Gentle reader, it was my earnest hope that by making Voltrine to wear this ruby lens, a sort of jeweler's loop or monocle as I envisioned it, you would be able to see the HP or health of all the monsters in this story, to gauge your progress in defeating them and to help you decide which of Voltrine's weapons you should use. Unfortunately, I ran out of time before I could implement this helpful feature. I hope you will enjoy the Inquisitor Voltrine even without this extra convenience, and I hope you will allow Voltrine to wear the ruby lens even though it has no purpose. If nothing else, the image of a vampiric Inquisitor bearing so singular an accessory will surely add to your enjoyment of the story. Sincerely, Elmir Dikivkovic. Let's examine the gladius. The Marquis wielded this sword in the early chapters of his career. Its attack power is 4. Okay, well, I don't know that we're going to be able to go through the archway. Let's examine the sigils this time. Signs of forbiddance have been drawn across the threshold. Passing through the archway will require engraving the correct counter formula with an appropriate instrument. Here we go up. You dig your claws into the wall and begin climbing. Lounge. The walls of this chamber are hung with dark curtains, flickering in the light of tall candelabra. Candelabrae? An ostentatious couch runs the length of the hall. To the west is a huge door. Exits east, down, and west. On the long couch are a flail and a cincada. Examine the flail. A heavy spiked ball on a chain. The spikes are blunted somewhat after repeated impacts on various battlefields. Its attack power is 3. We take it. Examine the cincada. Cincada? An Italian blade, broad at its base, pointed at its tip. Its attack power is 3. We take it. Let's examine this couch. This infamous custom-built couch is sure to feature in any conversation related to the Chateau Semix. Viewed up close, it fails to match its reputation. You will grant, however, that it is the longest couch you have ever seen. Sit on couch. You get onto the long couch. Lie on couch. But you're already on the long couch. Rest. That's not a verb I recognize. Stand. Well, let's examine these candelabra. The magics that maintain a low flame on each taper are entirely legal. Examine the curtains. You look behind the curtains. There's nothing there. Open door. Huge door seems to be locked. Let's go east. Hall of Feasting. There has been no feasting here for some time, and the long table is covered in dust. At the east end of the room, a grand window looks out on the chateau gardens. Exits east and west. There is a human here, pacing at the far end of the table. He has not marked your arrival. Are you in the employ of the Marquis? You call across the hall. His surprise fades quickly. I am, he says, by my own will. That's what thralls are usually commanded to say, you mutter, but he hears you perfectly. I assure you I am no thrall, Inquisitor. I am Sectaire du Noyes, and my will is my own. He begins traversing the length of the hall to meet you. The Marquis has promised unimaginable rewards in return for my assistance in his research. He requires human test subjects, their minds unclouded by vampiric magic. Until his experiment is ready, I am free to roam the chateau, to do as I please. He has advised me. Now he stands before you with an expression of despicable self-satisfaction. Advised me, not commanded, to prevent any interference by nosy inquisitors. He draws a cutlass from behind his back. Let us examine this sectaire. There is something more than human about this human's manner. Probably the Marquis has already executed a few experiments on sectaire, whether the sad creature realizes it or not. Let's see if the dagger is sufficient. It is not. Let's attack with the guisarme. Nope. The metal rod is a 4. Let's use our Italian blade. I attack with it. Nope. Let's do the rod. Attack with rod. Strike with the power of Eternitas and deal 4 damage. The rod disappears in a flash of darkness. Sectaire swings with his cutlass, but only manages to scratch the hem of your cape. We're going to do the same process again, basically ruling out... We're going to try and use the most powerful weapon in each attack as possible to be efficient with the consumption of our tools. Attack with dagger. Nope. Attack with guisarme. Okay. With the moment comes, you strike with your guisarme. It deals 2 damage to Sectaire, but in the same instant it snaps in half and is destroyed. A curious expression falls over Sectaire's face. He seems shocked, though you cannot see by what. You wonder if he is about to vomit. Then he melts all at once. Then his liquid remains begin to bubble and steam, and the so-called human evaporates completely. Left behind on the floor are a cutlass and a key. Let's examine the cutlass. A crude weapon, eminently suitable for a human. Its attack power is 2. Take it. Examine the key. A heavy iron key on a black ribbon. We take that as well. Let's examine the long table. For whatever reason, this very long table never comes up when people are talking about the very long couch in the lounge. A rusty carving knife is nearby. I examine carving. A rusty blade originally intended for dismembering roast turkeys, not one's enemies. Its attack power is 2. We'll take it. Examine the window. No. Examine the grand. Look. Examine the gardens. The hedge maze is almost invisible in the pouring rain. We can go east. You can't pass through solid ghost glass. Okay, we cannot go east. Let's go west. Can we go west from here now? First, opening a huge door. Unlock huge with key. Now we go west to the Great Stair. Now let's examine the arms and take them now that we have our gloves. Take the Thembrio. You claw your way up the wall. You reach out with one hand for Thembrio and grab it. However, in the same moment, you knock Horshuk loose. The longsword falls to the floor. You hop back down with Thembrio safe in your hands. Take Horshuk. Look. Oh, now that we've opened the door, the huge door to the east stands open and wind whistles down the length of the castle. Can we go up? To the gallery. Numerous objets d'art and historical oddities are on display in this museum hall. A portrait of the Marquis, the statue of Gaspar Oindre, a framed family tree, a Japanese warrior's equipment in an elaborate display case. A pane of ghost glass to the west offers a view of the balcony. The oak door to the east is closed. Let's examine the portrait. The Marquis sat for this portrait in the hall at the bottom of the stairs. You see his coat of arms on the wall behind him. The xanthic luminosity of his eyes was probably exaggerated by the artist. You recognize the signature of Bartenoid Agonis, an expert flatterer. We are just going wild with the francophone syllables here. Let's examine the statue. The stone Gaspard casts a defiant eye over his shoulder, as if daring his foe to attack from behind. The statue is not, strictly speaking, lifelike. Windray was petrified in 1709, and his remains have been on display in the chateau for perhaps 30 years. Examine family tree. This vellum scroll purports to trace the ancestry of the Marquis back to the 11th century and the legendary Urvampires Estreg, who sired Ixaron, who sired Niveme. Undoubtedly, the pedigree consists predominantly of fabrications, but this is de rigueur among the Marquis and his peers. Let's examine the equipment. Examine display case. The steel bars are worked in intricate designs, offering only tantalizing glimpses of the case's contents. In the steel display case are a suit of samurai armor, a katana, and a wakizashi. Let's open case. The steel display case seems to be locked. Unlock case with key. Open it. Examine the armor. The armor gleams like an insect's iridescent shell. Its polished plates bear no marks of battle. It was probably given as a gift rather than taken from a foe. I don't think we'll be able to do this, but let's try wearing armor. You have no need for such protections. Let's take the katana. Examine it. A single-edged longsword of Japanese manufacture. It is flawless. Its attack power is 5. The wakizashi. A Japanese sword with a blade about a foot long. Its attack power is 3. We take it as well. Let's look. And let's open oak. The oak door seems to be locked. Let's unlock oak with key. East. To the master bedroom. The Marquis does not sleep here, or indeed at all. The great bed is unused, the fireplace is spotless. A chill wind issues from the spiral staircase, and a tapestry hung on the eastern wall ripples gently. Exits are up and west. Let's examine the tapestry. The tapestry depicts the Battle of Noye, albeit in a highly romanticized manner. The towers of the chateau are visible above the trees, though in fact the forest of Noye is miles away from the castle. Further, the forces of the former Marquis Semi and the bandit captain Elandric are woven here, are shown to be evenly matched. In truth, Elandric was hopelessly outnumbered, and some contemporaneous sources report that she offered surrender. Currents of wind coil around your boots, flowing under the tapestry. Look behind tapestry. You pull the tapestry to the side and confirm your suspicions. A narrow hallway is hidden behind, leading east. Let's examine the bed. There is something of the funeral pall in the black velvet draped over the bed. Look under a bed. Under the bed is a silver chamber pot and a machete. Examine the machete. A long chipped blade, utilitarian in its design. Its attack power is 3. You take it. Examine chamber pot. You contemplate the object disdainfully. Such things are below the pay grade of an inquisitor. Let's examine the fireplace. A merely decorative hearth devoid of ashes, a silver poker stands nearby. Examine the poker. A fireplace poker forged from silver. Such extravagance, oops, let me put that back on, while not illegal, is certainly unforgivable. Its attack power is 5. Holy smokes, let's take it. Let us examine the spiral staircase. Rain is creeping down the windblown stair. Let's go east first, to the hidden passage. Here the walls are bare wood, and dust covers the cold stone floor. It is doubtful that the Marquis has found a use for this concealed redoubt in recent years. A rusty lever is set in the far wall. Exits west. A metallic rattle pierces the eerie silence, and a dark form emerges from the shadows. A figure in black armor. No, a suit of armor itself, acting on its own power, lumbers toward you. It raises an enormous greatsword. Let's see. We know the poker is 5. Let's see. Okay. Harshek is 6. Thembria is 5. Attack. Let's examine the armor. The magic required to animate a suit of armor is perfectly legal and does not in itself constitute cause for any action taken against the Marquis or his creation. However, this suit of armor is raising its greatsword against you in a very threatening manner, and threatening an inquisitor is grounds for violent retribution. A glowing glyph has been etched on the thing's helm. We strike attack armor with our strongest weapon. It is not sufficient to destroy it. You slice the suit of armor with Harshek and land a powerful blow, dealing 6 damage. The legendary weapon crumbles to dust. The armor swings its greatsword at you and manages to slice off a bit of your cape. Let's attack with... The horn is what, 3? It's 4. Attack with horn. Let's undo that. Let's Fauchard. It's 2. Attack with Fauchard. Nope, 2's not enough. Do we have 3? Is it the Wakizashi? Yes. Attack with Wakizashi. Okay, nope, we were right the first time. We attack with... Attack with horn. Okay. You swing the horn around and thrust it into the suit of armor, dealing 4 damage. The horn explodes into moist dust. The armor stands still. The on its helmet fades away. It falls to the floor and crumbles into dust. Only its greatsword remains. Floating above the dust are 2 motes of magic, which you recognize as a word of animation and a word of injunction. The spells that gave these plates of steel a semblance of life. You take possession of them, predicting you'll find some use for them later. Let's examine the greatsword. A huge two-handed sword with a very broad asymmetrical blade. Its attack power is 5. We take it. Examine Word of Animation. The Word of Animation is a magic spell which you hold more in your mind than in your hand. Based on your limited experience in these matters, you believe it to be related to the At rune that you saw etched into the walking armor's helmet. Examine the Word of Injunction. The Word of Injunction is a magic spell which you hold more in your mind than in your hand. Its attack power is 4, so it is a weapon. Okay. Let's look again. Examine the lever. You can deduce that this lever is very rarely used. Switch lever. You pull back on the lever. It resists and squeals in hideous protest, but then it gives away, and the chamber rumbles violently. The floor shakes, and sections begin to plunge down as if an insidious trap has been activated. But when the noise and shaking stop, you can see that the floor has reformed itself into a staircase leading to the room below. We go down. The Hall of Feasting. There's a staircase sticking out of the ceiling. We can go up, east, and west. Go back to, let's go, actually just go right back up and west. And now let's go up to the parapet. Rain falls in sheets, and the narrow walkway is like a sluice. On one side is the tower wall, ascending into the storm. On the other, statues of Nephrine and Alethadora look out over the countryside, serenely ignoring the precipitous drop to the castle grounds at their feet. Happily, a staircase nearby enables a safer descent. We have exits up, down, and west. Let's examine Nephrine. Nephrine is one of the heroines in Yvonne Dabelin's novel The Scarred Palm, expertly realized here in copper. The character is instantly recognizable from the combination of beauty and ruthlessness in her face and the harp in her hands. Examine the harp. A non-musical harp made of copper for a statue of Nephrine. Its attack power is 4. We take that. Let's examine Alethadora. Alethadora is the companion of Nephrine throughout most of The Scarred Palm, that infamous novel of Yvonne Dabelin. The expression on this copper statue captures not only Alethadora's mischievousness, but the sadness she took such pains to keep hidden. So in that sense, the statue is not entirely accurate. Alethadora holds her walking stick loosely at her side. Examine the walking stick. A long copper staff sculpted to look like gnarled wood. Its attack power is 4. We take that as well. We look to the parapet. We've got up, down, and west. Let's go west. You follow the walkway west, and eventually a tower becomes visible through the storm. A door and windows alive with greenish light. Then your nose stings. Then your eyes, the back of your throat. Now you see the vapor flowing from out of the windows and door, dissipated only slightly by the surrounding wind and rain. An unbearable mephitis radiates from this tower, a noxious atmosphere you cannot bring yourself to enter. You are forced to turn back and wonder how you can overpower such an awful odor. We go up, instead, to the roof. You dig your claws into the wall and begin climbing. A lesser inquisitor might lose one's footing on this steeply pitched roof in this torrential downpour, but fortunately the Orthodoxy gave this particular assignment to their most skilled agent. A gap in the roof and a few loose bricks indicate that some section of the castle was forcibly removed from the spot. Looking up, you see what happened. The tower is floating in the clouds above the chateau. That is most certainly illegal. Exits are up and down. I examine loose bricks. Bricks are littered across the roof. A nearby specimen poses a particularly imposing jaggedness. Jagged brick. A squarish piece of rock with a knife-like edge. Its attack power is 2. Take it. So, can we go up? You have no way of flying up into that tower. So we cannot go up. We cannot go west to continue. So we need to go down. Down. Now we can go back to the west. The gallery. Let's examine the balcony from here. The Marquis is standing on the balcony on the other side of the glass. Oddly, he is still leaning on over the railing as if waiting for you to reappear in the hall below. Pardon me a moment. I need to blow my nose. Thanks for your patience. All right, let us examine the Marquis. Okay, that is the portrait again. Let's go down and to the west. And now let's go up. You dig your claws into the wall and begin climbing. Balcony. This lens-shaped platform is bounded by a low marble railing on one side and the eastern wall on the other. A ghost glass window is set in the wall. A horned statue stands sentry nearby. Exits are east and down. The Marquis seems delighted that you've taken the initiative to meet him face to face, but he says nothing. He only chortles and swirls his scythe dramatically. I examine him. On close inspection, there is something out of place about the Marquis. His nonverbal delight at the prospect of violence borders on the bestial. Let's see. The Great Sword is attack power 5. I don't think I have anything of greater power currently. The Katana is 5. We have that's 4. We have the Wakizashi is 3. The walking stick is 4. We have something that's 2. The cutlass is 2. And the dagger is 1. Let's start with the stick. Attack with stick. Nope. Undo. Okay, yep, we undid sufficiently. Look. Okay. Let's attack with Katana. What I wanted to do, the reason I was undoing in the first place, was to examine our cape. You wore your best cape to suit this high-profile assignment. You could not have anticipated that it would sustain so much damage tonight, but you need not dwell on the subject. Clarion will repair it. Okay, attack with Katana. You plunge the katana into the Marquis. It takes 5 damage. The blade itself crumbles to dust. The Marquis swings his scythe, tearing your cape. Attack with Great Sword. Okay, that will defeat him. Attack with Wakizashi. Nope, it does need to be 4. Let's try attack with staff. No, it's attack with walking stick. You bring the walking stick down on the Marquis and deal 4 damage. The stick itself snaps in half and is destroyed. The Marquis falls to his knees, leaning heavily on his scythe. His form swirls and fades like a drop of ink dissolving in a glass of water. Your suspicions were correct. This is not the Marquis himself, but a phantom, programmed to taunt and distract you. With a rattling gasp, the spectre dissipates into a milky fog, and his scythe clatters to the balcony floor. The gaseous ghost form, obeying your implicit instructions, rises up into your nostrils and suffuses your body. After taking a moment to integrate the substance, you look down at your hands. With some small concentration, you cause them to fade away for a moment. So now we have intangibility, as if this weren't more clearly a derivation of Castlevania Symphony of the Night. Now we have attained fog form. Examine the scythe. A farming implement turned toward violence. Its attack power is 3. We take it. Let's examine the statue. The limestone form of some minor demon, its expression carved to create the sense that this statue, resentful of its station, is nonetheless powerless to defy its master. It grips a little sickle in one hand. Examine the sickle. A moon-shaped blade with a short handle. Its attack power is 2. We take it. Let's examine the ghost glass window. Can we go east? We can. Your body melts into bluish incorporeal smoke, and you pass through the glass. Gallery. We need to go back to the basement. So we go back west, and down, and down. Oh, we forgot to examine the guests. Casting an eye over the decaying assemblage, you notice an impressive battle axe still nominally in the grasp of its former possessor. We examine the axe. A broad-bladed axe, its handle enwrapped by a skeletal hand. Its attack power is 5. The surrounding air is thick with the vile perfume of mortal decay. I take it. Let's go east to the tunnel. Certain flagstones of the floor are carved with certain strange symbols. Examine symbols. We have the word of animation. Use word of animation. You speak the word of animation, and the glyph glows as the flagstones themselves rise up out of the floor, revealing a passage into the deeper foundations of the Chateau Semi. Ancient tomb. A crypt of antediluvian design, perhaps at first a natural cave, hewn by its original discoverers into a roughly circular shape. This chamber must predate the chateau above by some millennia. It made no appearance in any of your researches. The slope floor descends toward a basalt sarcophagus, surrounded by 7 iron urns. Exits up. Examine sarcophagus. The sarcophagus was not brought here. It was carved out of the living rock, like the walls and floor. Examine the urns. First urn. Which do you mean? The northern urn, the northeastern urn, the eastern urn, the southeastern urn, the southwest urn, the western urn, or the northwestern urn? Well, these are in a rough arch. Let's go left to right. Examine southwest urn. The urns transcribe the points of a heptagon around the sarcophagus, 7 vessels of beaten iron from an age when the iron was valued more highly than gold. This one is closed. Open southwest urn, revealing an ivory needle. You can detect a primal magic about this needle, which may have been carved from the tusk of a woolly mammoth. Its attack power is 6. Take needle. Open west urn. You open the western urn, revealing a wooden idol. Okay, yeah, all the descriptions are the same. Examine wooden idol. A humanoid figure, expertly carved. A line painted around its neck may represent some sort of necklace. Take idol. You have no use for that. Open northwest urn, revealing a blackened thorn. An inch-long thorn cut from a nameless vine or flower, now extinct. A dark, unidentifiable residue coats the tip. I cannot take the thorn. Open north urn, revealing a pool of quicksilver. A quantity of liquid hydrargyrum metal rests in the bottom of the urn. Hydrargyrum. Yeah, liquid silver. Open northeast urn. You open the northeastern urn, revealing a clay tablet. Some sort of pre-linguistic figures are pressed into the dried clay. Open east urn, revealing a milky gem. An unremarkable stone. You are at a loss as to the reason for its internment here. Open southeast urn, revealing a shriveled brain. The oils used to preserve this brain lost their efficacy some centuries ago. Let's open it. You begin to push the heavy lid aside. This requires some effort, even for a vampire of your considerable strength. A hand reaches out of the casket to assist you. You leap backward in shock and look on speechlessly as the desiccated appendage completes the task of removing the basalt slab. Then the limb's owner rises from its sarcophagus, a humanoid shape, a full foot taller than you, though of an emaciated aspect. Its body was once wrapped in linen bandages. Most of these have disintegrated, revealing the time-blackened tissues beneath. An iron torque is fastened around its withered neck. The mummy grips a blade of chipped stone and takes a step toward you. We're going to start with the needle. You stick the mummy with the ivory needle, dealing 6 damage. The needle, having waited millennia to serve its purposes, melts and disappears. The mummy lunges. How could it be so fast? And its blade tears silently through your cape. Poker is 5. Attack with poker. Holy smoke. Okay. You plunge the poker into the mummy, though the holy metal stings your fingers even through your gloves. The weapon deals 5 damage and explodes. Thembria is also 5. We attack with that. Ooh, this mummy is strong. You bring Thembriod with a mighty swing and deal 5 damage. The legendary weapon is destroyed. The mummy's dagger plunges at your heart, but you push its stringy arm to the side. Battle axe. Okay, that was more than enough. Let's undo that. The Sinkada attack. Nope, that's too much as well. Attack with dagger. That's not enough. Undo. Let's attack with cutlass. Perfect. Okay. You slice through the mummy with the cutlass and deal 2 damage. The flimsy weapon turns to dust immediately. A weak groan issues from the mummy's mouth. It slumps forward, about to fall to its knees, but in mid-fall it crumbles to dust. The only sound is of its stone blade clattering to the floor. You step over the mummy's remains to look inside its sarcophagus. It has left behind another artifact, an athame carved from bone. This is another word that I've never known how to pronounce and haven't bothered to look up. We're just going to roll with it. The bone of some impossibly ancient beast carved by the earliest practitioners of magic into a ritual instrument. The brittle point is useless as a weapon, but it would be profoundly effective in the engraving of certain sigils and glyphs. We'll take it. Stone blade. The material used in the blade's manufacture is beyond the reach of your geologic acumen. Its deadly sharpness appears to have been enhanced by some unrecognizably primitive magic. Its attack power is 7. We'll take that. Let's go up. Okay. And we go east to the crypt. Enter casket. That's not for entering or getting on or whatever. Okay. Look in casket. Take lens. You discorporate your hand so as to reach through the glass. Taken. Wear it. You put on the ruby lens. Take gladius. Examine it. Right. Attack power 4. Examine sigils. Okay. The sigils of forbiddance have been drawn across the threshold. Passing through the archway will require engraving the correct counter formula with an appropriate instrument. Engrave counter formula with thame. Use. You could use that thame to counteract the sigils protecting the archway, but the particular glyphs required are unknown to me. Very well. We go up to the lounge. East To the Hall of Feasting. East. Your body melts into bluish incorporeal smoke, and you pass through the glass. Hedge maze. A labyrinth of sculpted greenery stretches before you, a frivolous distraction. You climb atop the hedge wall and find it solid enough to traverse. The rain is relentless. Exits are east and west. You reconstitute your physical form. I examine the maze. Passing over the maze, you can see a few features intended to minimize the monotony of endlessly turning left to right. A fountain, a sundial, a Doric column. One cul-de-sac is occupied by an unfortunate explorer's skeleton. Oop, skeleton. Evidently, it did not occur to this individual to climb up the walls. Its skeletal fingers are wrapped around a glittering hand axe. While its owner rotted away in the hedge maze, this axe has remained intact and untarnished. Its attack power is 5. You take it. Examine the fountain. Spouts of water surround a sculpted image of a unicorn, the emblem of Simics. The unrelenting rain spoils the effect somewhat. Let's examine the sundial, then. A useless instrument, especially for a vampire. Column? The column is somewhat taller than you are. It is purely decorative. There's nothing here for it to support. On close inspection, a seams running down the side of the column indicate the presence of a secret compartment. The symbol is etched near the panel center. Use word of animation. You speak the word of animation. The symbol glows, and the panel dematerializes, revealing a trident. Examine the trident. The prongs of this powerful weapon are plated with gold. Its attack power is 6. You take it. Let us... standing atop the hedges, you can dash from one end of the maze to the other in a few moments. We go east. To the Rose Garden. Those who manage to navigate the hedge maze are rewarded with this nightmarish sight. Giant roses growing wild over what was once a tasteful garden, thorny tendrils spreading like a blight across the yellowed grass. The intense collective aroma of all these flowers, while not unpleasant, is almost enough to make you swoon. Exits west. A woman is growing among the vines. She blinks at you languidly. You wave. Good evening, mademoiselle. I have come here seeking information concerning the Marquis. You have come to assassinate the Marquis, she hisses. I have been apprised of your arrival, Inquisitor. You bow stiffly. An unnecessary and unbecoming deception. I beg your pardon, mademoiselle. My name is Mandragora, she says, as lightning illuminates her emerald skin, and I am bound by duty to destroy the enemies of the Marquis. I see. I, similarly, am bound by duty to destroy the accomplices of the Marquis, as well as his experiments. Your duty is of no interest to me, Inquisitor. Come and face me, or else leave my garden. Mandragora's tendrils ripple around her, and the field of brambles lurches toward you as a single body. You nod. Very well. My name is Voltrine, by the way. Let's examine the Mandragora. It is not illegal to grow a living, thinking plant, but it does seem cruel. This woman will never see anything beyond the walls of this garden. She will never visit museums or climb mountains or walk along a beach. You cut your sympathies short. This individual is interfering with your investigation. She must be dealt with. The trident seems like overkill, but let's start with that anyway. Yeah, that does 6. Let's undo. I still have a great sword. Let's see about using the word of injunction. That's 4, right? Let's start with that. Attack with injunction. You speak the word of injunction. The body of Mandragora is racked with intense force, taking 4 damage, but the spell fades away. Mandragora swipes at you with a thorny vine, cutting an ugly gash in your cape. Now, will the trident be overkill at this point? You thrust the trident into Mandragora and deal 6 damage. The weapon bursts into flames. Okay, 6 is actually not enough to kill it. So it's got more than 10 health. Let's still not use our strongest weapon yet. Let's use instead the greatsword. Dealing 5 damage, smashes into Mandragora and deals 5 damage, then it explodes. Another lash from Mandragora's tendrils land painfully on your cheek. The trident should definitely kill it at this point. Attack with trident. Yeah, that's correct. Okay. Undo. Let's attack with... let's examine the flail. That is 3. Attack with flail. Nope. Needs more than... I still have my flail. Let's examine the sickle. The scythe. What was the flail? It's also 3. I need something more than that. Gladius is 4. It would have been thematically appropriate to have used our sickle or scythe here, but we'll just use the... I just looked at it, the Gladius. If I have the correct words, attack with Gladius. You plunge the Gladius into your enemy, dealing 4 damage. The weapon is disintegrated by the force of impact. She stops moving. She blinks. And then she withers away, and her form is not that of a woman, but of a gnarled twig. Her brambles blacken and fall to pieces. Only the roses remain, and one length of vine covered in thorns. A vine that Mandragora used in her attempt to kill you. The thicker end is smooth enough to grip as a handle. The opposite end is covered in menacing thorns. Its attack power is 7. The flowers are unnaturally robust, probably as a result of melophytic interference. At their center is the stump that was once Mandragora. You pick one rose and install it in your buttonhole. At once you feel yourself surrounded by an aura of its cloying perfume. Let's go west. To the hedge maze, and west again to the Hall of Feasting. We go up to the hidden passage, and west to the master bedroom. Actually, let's go back east. I don't often go this route. Let's go west to the lounge. That was what was here. Okay. West again to the Great Stair. I already took those. Up is the gallery. We've looted this area successfully. We go east to the bedroom. Up to the parapet. Now we go west again. The rose's atmosphere surrounds you, forming a bubble of sweet air with enough solidity to repel the toxic gas surrounding the western tower. You continue along the walkway and enter. Laboratory. Here, if any further evidence were needed, is proof positive. The Marquis is not merely dabbling, but devoting considerable resources to his study of melophysis. You recognize the banned materials on the bookshelves at a glance. Diagrams on the wall depict physical space being folded into unnatural shapes. And most damning of all, in the far corner of the chamber is a pinprick of darkness, a rent torn through the very air, through which a viridescent miasma is slowly leaking into this dimension. Exits are east. A loose page lies on the workbench with some sort of formula scrawled on it. I examine the page. At the first step you take toward the workbench, something skitters out from underneath it. A furry, many-legged creature you cannot immediately recognize. It opens a toothy maw and growls breathily at you, standing between you and the pitted desk. It dawns on you that this is a famulus, conjured by the Marquis. Besides interfering with your investigation, the monster itself is illegal. I'll examine the famulus. A melophytic famulus is sculpted with the limbs, sensory organs, even the specific intellectual faculties required by its summoner. Presumably, when this one is not acting as a mere guard dog, it is able to assist the Marquis in his depraved studies. Let's start with a 5 strength attack. Attack with battle axe. Let's see if a 7 strength attack is sufficient to kill. Attack with vine. Nope. Okay. Let's start with that battle axe after all. You wail in fury as you bring the battle axe down on the Famulus, dealing 5 damage. The axe is reduced to steel splinters. The Famulus leaps forward and closes its massive jaws around your cape, tearing off a sizable strip of fabric. Very little remains of your cape. You couldn't bear to bring this rag before Clarienne. She worries about you so much, she would burst into tears if she realized what dangers you confront in the commission of your occupation. All the same, you can't bring yourself to remove the wretched thing. Inquisitors are not immune to sentiment. Attack with vine. No? Oh, wow. Okay. Undo. Let's use... Stoneblade is also 7. Okay. Shard is 2. What's the flail? 3. Hand axe is 5. Let's attack with hand axe. Attack with... Okay, a well-aimed swipe of the hand axe deals 5 damage to the Famulus. The axe explodes into a cloud of glittering moths, which quickly disperse. The Famulus tries to bite down on your arm, but you smack it away. Attack with vine. Okay, vine is enough to kill. The trident is 6, right? Attack with... Try... The harp is 4. Attack with harp. Nope. 4 is not enough. Do we have something that does 5? What was the scythe? 3. Stone blade is 7. The machete is 3. Sickle is 2. A little bit of overkill is probably fine. Let's use the trident. Attack with trident. You thrust the trident into the Famulus and deal 6 damage. The weapon bursts into flames. The Famulus utters one last creaking whine, and then it disappears with a hideous popping sound. A magic particle rises into the air over the spot. A spell you recognize as a word of vexation. This must have been what imparted such orneriness to the creature. You take possession of it. The word of vexation is a magic spell which you hold more in your mind than in your hand. Its attack power is 7. Examine the page. The formula on the scrap of paper is a glyph of interruption, specifically designed to suspend the effects of some other magic for a limited time. To inscribe the glyph would require a specialized ritual instrument. Take a page. Okay, that's what we need to get through that gate. Let's look again. Let's examine the materials. Your instinct is to destroy the most heretical books at once, but they will need to be taken in as evidence after you've dealt with the Marquis. A spherical vial of hythic acid is sitting atop one shelf. Though it has applications in any number of unseemly or unlawful endeavors, mere possession of hythic acid is perfectly legal. Its attack power is 6. Take the acid. The diagrams. The bizarre deformations drawn out by the Marquis on these parchments are enough to make your forehead ache, even without the knowledge that the entity he purports to force into such contortions is the universe itself. Examine pinprick of darkness. The perforation is so minuscule in size as to seemingly disappear when observed directly. This is something that I especially like. I don't have a problem with this misspelling. I find the word itself kind of infuriating. Apparently, the spelling of minuscule is minuscule. That threw me off for a long time. I often got that one wrong, and so it's now something I'm particularly on the lookout for anytime I encounter the word. You have dealt with such things before, however. Even the most diminutive of melophytic phenomena can have disastrous effects. That's not for taking. Let's go back out to the east. And we need to go down. East, down. West, down. To the crypt. East. To the grotto. Oh, we just had to walk through. Okay, so the eastern archway is protected by potent array of sigils. I typed east. You lean down and carve the glyph of interruption with the athame, suspending the enchantment just long enough for you to pass through the archway. To the grotto. Slumped stalagmites surround a pool of greenish liquid, its depths obscured by unnatural mist. Exits are west. Examine stalagmites. Each mass of stone seems to ooze indolently over itself, creeping towards the dark pool. A sword is sticking out of one of the stalagmites. It must have been thrust into the rock with considerable force. Which do you mean, the white rapier, the machete, or the cincada? I'm going to guess it's the rapier. You think you recognize the weapon, but you won't be sure until you've extracted it from this rock formation. You grab hold of the rapier's hilt and pull. It doesn't budge. Okay. Let's examine the pool. You peer over the edge of the pool. Something peers back up at you. It swims up at you. It swims up at you, undulating eerily, faster and faster until it emerges with a viscous splashing at the water's edge. You recognize its shape. An Emertian. Ah, friend of the Marquis, it mutters, the words muffled by its many-lobed mouth. I was not apprised of your visitation. All the same, I am happy to take on another pupil. Then it was you who instructed the Marquis in the art of Melophysis, you ask. Its eye opens in a grim smirk. I recognize the questioning of an inquisitor, it spits back. You may spare me any rehearsed remarks upon the necessity of my eradication. I have had it all from your predecessor in the moments before he was devoured. You nod. Then I will proceed directly to the eradication. Attempt this if you must, it says, unsheathing a chitinous pincer. What I have said so recently, it is all the same to me if you choose to flee with your life. Well, let's examine the Nemertian. The Nemertians discovered the principle of Melophysis and employed its unseemly techniques to travel here from their native spheres. They are well aware of the deleterious effects of melophytic magic, but, lacking any faculty corresponding to the terrestrial concept of a conscience, have no qualms with proliferating its use across the planet. Thus, it falls to the orthodoxy to defend the world against Nemertian influence and to punish anyone, vampire or no, who engages in any form of melophytic research. Let us attack with... The acid is 6. The stone blade is 7. The brick is like 2. What's the harp? 4. Let's just start with something powerful. Attack with acid. No, let's attack with the word of vexation. Or is that not going to work? Well, it'll work because it's all equivalent. But I would be concerned that a word of vexation might not work against a practitioner of Melophysis. Let's examine the machete. That's 3. The whip. Attack with whip. You swipe at the Nemertian with a thorny whip, slicing deep and dealing 7 damage, but then the whip withers away like the rest of Mandragora's armament. The Nemertian's membranes billow, and it flies up into the dark heights of the cave. It swoops down upon you. You leap out of the way. Your cape is caught in its pincer. It yanks on the tattered garment, drawing you in. You pull in the other direction until your cape is torn from your shoulders. You leap out of range and whirl around to see the monster shredding what remained of your cape to ribbons. Then it turns toward you. Rip cape. Alas. Attack with acid. Oh, acid is not enough. Undo. Attack with vexation. Also not enough. Undo. Let's, flail is 3. Attack with flail. You swing the flail around and around, building up speed. Then you swing it into the Nemertian, and it explodes, dealing 3 damage. The Nemertian thrusts in response, but you dodge the blow. Attack with stone blade. Not enough. Undo. Let's use the harp. Attack with harp. The harp is an awkward weapon, but you quickly judge how best to slam it into the Nemertian. Your foe takes 4 damage, but the instrument does not survive the process. You duck behind a stalagmite to avoid another swipe of the creature's pincer. Carving. Attack with carving. You stab with the carving knife. The blade snaps, but the Nemertian takes 2 damage. The Nemertian fills its membranes with air and launches itself upward to attempt another attack from above, but you are ready for it and have no cape to be caught by this time. Fauchard is 2. Attack with Fauchard. You plunge the Fauchard into the Nemertian, dealing 2 damage and destroying the weapon in the process. The Nemertian thrusts in response, but you dodge the blow. The brick is 2. Attack with brick. Let's see if the dagger would have been enough. Attack with dagger. White. Nope. Undo. Attack with brick. You thump the brick over the Nemertian, dealing 2 damage. The brick crumbles. The bulbous creature stops in its tracks. Have it your own way, Inquisitor. Go and wreak your justice upon the Marquis. We Nemertians love nothing more than to see vampire turn against vampire. The noise it produces next might be a hollow laugh, or else a death rattle, for the Nemertian collapses, its unearthly organs squelching and shriveling before your eyes. You look over the remains, its air membrane, shrunken into a form not unlike your beloved silk cape. It's your beloved silk cape and its deadly pincer. Where air membrane? First taking the membranous cape, you put on the membranous cape. Examine it. The material is remarkably smooth and soft, considering its origin. You have seen firsthand how its folds take in surrounding air and converts the pressure into a powerful upward force. Examine the pincer. One of the few rigid elements of Nemertian anatomy is the pincer. A grisly trophy, to be sure, but its efficacy in combat far outweighs its distastefulness. Its attack power is 9. Take it. Look. Take rapier. You set your feet and pull harder at the rapier. The blade seems to shift in the rock, a little. You heave once more, and the rapier slides out of the stalagmite with such ease that you stumble backward a bit. Let's go examine this mist. An unaccountable quantity of vapor covers the water's surface, creeping out over the stone, as if seeking to infiltrate the chateau beyond. We go west, we go up. We go east, we go up, we go west and up. And now, at the parapet, we go up to the roof. A gap in the roof and a few loose bricks indicate that some section of the castle was forcibly removed from this spot. Looking up, you see what happened. The towers floating in the clouds above the chateau. That is most certainly illegal. We go up. You raise your cape around you and catch a gust of wind. It bears you up into the tempest, up to the tower. Floating tower. You land lightly on this rain-slick floor. Thunder shakes the tower, and then a voice booms. "You're too late, Inquisitor." A vortex of twisted space hangs over the tower, whipping the wind and clouds into a maelstrom. You can feel it pulling on you as well. Exits down. "Too late for what?" you ask. The Marquis glides toward you, unperturbed by the howling winds. "The gate is open," he explains, "and shortly it will be under my control. I have solved the equations. All that remains is the psychical component of bending the gate to my will." "I'm afraid that won't be possible," you tell him. "Marquis Semi, in the name of the Orthodoxy, I hereby arrest you on charges of research and experimentation in Melophysis, the knowledge or application of which is a capital crime, and on various related charges to be enumerated before a magistrate. You have the right to stand trial and speak, or be spoken for in your defense. Do you choose to exercise this right?" "I do not," he sneers. He stretches out his fingers to show you long, barbed claws. "Very well. In that case, the Orthodoxy sentences you to death and obliges me carry out your execution at my earliest convenience." We examine the Marquis. The Marquis Semi has become something more than a vampire. He is a monster. Melophysis has dimmed the luminosity of his eyes. His arteries are black beneath his cyanotic skin. He smiles back at you hideously, his tongue lolling like an inky tentacle. We're going to start with the strongest weapons we have, the pincer. You bring the arms of the pincer around the Marquis Semi, crushing it and dealing 9 damage. The pincer itself splits under the force of impact. The Marquis pounces on you and digs his nails into your arm. You shove him away. We attack with the rapier. You bring the you thrust with the right rapier and deal 6 damage to the Marquis Semi. The blade erupts in silver flames, and you feel that Udolfon's memory has at last been laid to rest. He flashes out of existence. Then he reappears, his claws closing around your throat. You shake him off and leap backwards. Attack with acid. The vial shatters, and hythic acid splashes all over the Marquis Semi. The liquid then erupts in flames, dealing 6 damage. He shrieks a melophytic spell, and lightning springs out of the vortex. You activate your membranous cape and propel yourself away before the bolt can connect with the spot where you were standing. Let's attack with our dagger. The white dagger. Oh, how cinematic that our first weapon should be the last we use. You stab the dagger into the Marquis Semi and deal 1 damage. The blade shatters. The Marquis falls to his knees. His lips move. His words are swallowed in the storm. The vortex sputters. You sprint to the lip of the platform. You fall. An indescribable cacophony shreds the air above you. You land and look up. The floating tower is gone. The vortex is gone. There is no sign of the Marquis. The storm continues to rage. You cannot spare a moment's rest. There is evidence to collect and paperwork to complete. You draw your new cape around your shoulders and begin your descent of the Chateau Semix. The end. Elmir closes his notebook and smiles. "How chilling," the moderator says, as applause dies down. "And how detailed." Elmir nods modestly. The moderator turns to the audience. "Are there any questions?" "Yeah, I have a question." I don't recognize the person asking. "How do you call that a vampire tale?" Elmir frowns. "I don't understand." "I mean, you say the characters are vampires, but they don't do any vampire stuff. They don't turn into bats. They don't drink blood. I don't think you even mentioned blood once." Elmir starts flipping through his notebook. Someone else speaks up. "There were several vampire elements. There was hypnosis and caskets." "There was some vampire-adjacent stuff, but if you never told me these characters were vampires, I never would have known they were vampires. They're just spooky guys. You should call them spooky guy tales, is all I'm saying." The moderator finally takes control. "Please, authors," he says, even though it's only the one person causing the trouble. "This is Castle Balderstone. The occasion demands some decorum." The person with the question sighs loudly. Awkwardness is thick in the air. But Elmir closes his notebook and speaks up. The querent has a point. I skimmed back through the story, and I don't see any blood. But of course, this is only one of my vampire tales. The others contain many more of these classic vampire elements. If you would like to peruse them, they're collected in a volume titled Elmir Divkovic's World of Vampire Tales. I have a few copies in my car. The moderator thanks Elmir and ushers him down from the dais. Now it is time for the next author to step forward and share the next of the evening's delirious entertainments. We have a special treat for you tonight, the moderator explains. Some students from Silas Elementary are here to present a story. A whole herd of 8-year-olds rises from their chairs and floods the aisles, corralled from behind by their teacher. With some effort, she wrangles them all onto the dais, and then she pulls out one student to address the audience. I was expecting the little girl to draw a blank and start gawping at us, but she doesn't seem fazed at all. We're Miss Shiroiwa's class, and we wrote this story together, she explains. It's called The Banshee's Curse. We all worked on it, another kid yells. Miss Shiroiwa shushes him, but the girl at center stage takes it in stride. Yeah, we all worked on it, but Miss Shiroiwa also gave us... She purses her lips and remembers the word editorial oversight. The teacher rolls her eyes good-naturedly. My name is Daniela Florence, and I will be your narrator tonight, the girl says, as she opens her notebook and begins to read. Ryan Veeder presents The Banshee's Curse by Miss Shiroiwa's 3rd grade class. Release 1, serial number 201031, Inform 7, Build 6M62, I6, version 6.34, Library 6/12 in SD. School. There were 3 best friends named Lena, Garen, and Chloe. You play as Lena and Gavin. Chloe was an exchange student from Ireland. A banshee followed her from Ireland, and when she looked in its face, she got the curse of the banshee. She needed a potion to undo the curse. To the east of the school was the town graveyard. To the west of the school was the museum. There was a magic chalice that they could make a potion to cure the curse if they had all the ingredients. They found a map in the library that showed where all the ingredients were. Examine me. There was a girl named Lena and a boy named Garen. They were Gavin? Wait, what? I'm having trouble keeping track of the children. Yeah, okay. The boy is either Gavin or Garen, depending on when you look. Okay, well, that's only a little confusing. There was a girl named Lena and a boy named Garen. They were best friends. Their other best friend was Chloe, who suffered from the Banshee's curse. Examine Lena. Lena had red hair, and she had a magic necklace, but she didn't know it was magic. Examine necklace. Lena thought it was just a regular necklace. Examine Garen. Garen had brown hair. Examine Gavin. That noun is not implemented. Examine Chloe. Chloe had dark curly hair, and she wore glasses. She couldn't talk. She was so sick from the curse. Examine the map. The map told where all the ingredients for the potion to cure the curse of the Banshee were. A forever fern in the Garden of Doom. A coalflower in the... I can't read at the moment because a cat is in the way. Come here, Goosey. Okay, yeah. A coalflower in the Goblin Coal Mine. A pinch of mummy dust from a mummy's sarcophagus, and one more ingredient that was smudged, but they could see the path leading up to the smudge, and it had a special crow's stone on one side, a stone in the shape of a crow. Okay, so we've got a few different things here. Let's try going west to the museum. Museum. At the town's museum, there was an exhibit about ancient Egypt. They had a mummy in a sarcophagus, and it came to life. If it touched you, you would die. To the east of the museum was their school. Some of its dust was left inside its sarcophagus. They were carrying nothing. Let's go back and let's take the map. Can we take the chalice? And let's examine it. The chalice was a fancy type of cup. It had an engraving on it of a selkie, which is an Irish mythological creature. They had to put all the potion ingredients in there to create the potion. Okay. Let's examine that map once more. So, forever fern in the garden, coal flower in a goblin coal mine, mummy dust from the sarcophagus, and a smudged ingredient. We go west. Take dust. The dragonfly buzzed over to the mummy and started flying around its head to confuse it. While the mummy was distracted, Lena and Garen took the dust out of its sarcophagus. Put dust in chalice. They put the mummy's dust into the chalice. Okay. Let's go back to... Let's examine this dragonfly. Nope, can't examine that. Let's go east to the school. They have a bed made out of cushions. Let's examine the bed. They made it out of the couch cushions from the school library, and Chloe was lying on it. She was pale and sweaty because the curse was beginning to kill her. Okay, let's go east to the graveyard. The graveyard was full of those scraggly trees that looked like hands, and there were stars shining up above. There was a ghost dog there who kept digging up human bones. To the east of the graveyard was the haunted house. To the west of the graveyard was the school. Ghost dog? The ghost dog was nice. It didn't try to hurt them. It pointed its nose at the haunted house to say, "Go there." So we go east to the haunted house. In the house there was a bedroom with chains and blood. In the front of the house there was a carriage with a skeleton horse. In the backyard of the house there was a garden. Examine the carriage. A long time ago there was a girl whose birthday was on Halloween. Her friends never came to her birthday party, even though she invited all of them, because they were out trick-or-treating. She went out to look for them, and she was never seen again. She is seen on Halloween in a carriage with a skeleton horse. If you go inside the carriage, you will be cursed to be at her party forever. I guess we better not do that. Examine the horse. Yep, that just shows the same thing. Okay. Let's go into the house. They couldn't go that way. Examine the garden. The garden was full of red and black roses, and there was an odd stone way in the back. Examine the stone. The stone was shaped like a crow. The crow's stone. That meant that the last ingredient was behind the house to the east. Take crow's stone. Take stone. Go behind the house. Let's examine the rose. Yep, okay. Enter house. Search house. Put stone in chalice. Odd stone. Let's examine this map once more. I'm misunderstanding something. A forever fern is in the Garden of Doom. A coal flower. Okay. So the ingredient is back there, but we don't know what the ingredient is. Search garden. The roses had poison thorns. And Lena and Garen didn't know that, so they touched the thorns and they died. Lake of the Dead. When they woke up, they were at the Lake of the Dead, where every dead person goes when they die. There were some skeletons carrying a coffin across the water. To the west of the Lake of the Dead was the Goblin Court, and there was also a cave at the lake. Examine skeletons. The skeletons were actually walking on the water, and they had a coffin that they were carrying. Let's examine the coffin. The coffin had a dead body in it that the skeletons were carrying to the other side of the Lake of the Dead. Fair enough. Let's go to the Goblin Court. The Goblin King sat on a huge throne, and there were 100 other goblins hanging around him. He said, "Little girl and little boy, I can bring you back to life, but you have to answer my riddle." We need to go underneath the court to the Goblin's coal mine. We go down the coal mine. As they walked around the coal mine, there were all these flowers that sprang up. The mine was about to explode, but they didn't know that. If they went up out of the mine, they would go back to the Goblin Court. There was one cauliflower right at Lena's feet. Take cauliflower. Put it in chalice. Up. Woo! We got out before it exploded. To the Goblin Court. Let's examine the map. The Garden of Doom is a forever fern. Pinch of mummy dust from a mummy's sarcophagus. We got that. We go east. It's Lake of the Dead. Enter cave. In the cave, there was a giant dragonfly caught in a web. They could get up to get outside of the cave. The cave was further down, too. Free dragonfly. Take web. Take dragonfly. Garen got out his pocket knife and cut all the strands of the spider web, and the dragonfly got free. Garen told the dragonfly to fly away and be free, but the dragonfly said he owed his life to Garen, and he would follow him forever. So, yeah, clearly there was a little bit of an operational error here where we were able to use the dragonfly to distract the mummy before and got the mummy dust. So, whoops. Oh well. That's just the logic of kids' stories sometimes. Let's go down further to the Garden of Doom. At the bottom of the cave was the Garden of Doom. Every poisonous, deadly plant grew there. It's kind of a theme in this story, really. They could go up to the rest of the cave. Lena looked around and she saw the forever fern growing there. Examine the forever fern. The forever fern is a fern that never dies, and the spiral at the end of the leaves keeps going around and around forever. Take it. Put it in chalice. Okay. Now we go up. We go up to Lake of the Dead, west. Talk to Goblin King. The Goblin King told them his riddle. What is the longest word you can write with the top row of a typewriter? And Garen said, that's easy. It's typewriter. And the Goblin King got really mad and swore they cheated, but he had to honor his end of the deal. So he brought Lena and Garen back to life. When they woke up, they were back at the school library with Chloe. So now we can go east to the graveyard and east to the haunted house. And now we can search the garden more carefully. No. Undo. That's not right. Let's examine that map once more. They could see the path leading up to the smudge, and it had a special crow stone on one side. A stone in the shape of a crow. We got a forever fern, we got a cauliflower, we got a pinch of mummy dust. So here's the haunted house. In the house, there was a bedroom with chains and blood. In the front of the house, there was a carriage with a skeleton horse. Examine chains. There were bones on the floor in the bedroom. The banshee had eaten the body, leaving the skeleton. Examine the blood. Take bones. No. Okay. Look in carriage. Enter carriage. Lena and Garen got inside the carriage, and the ghost girl was inside, and she made the skeleton horse go faster and faster, and they got to the side of a cliff, and then the ghost girl made the horse go off the side of the cliff, and Lena and Garen died. So here we are at the Lake of the Dead again. Go west. Talk to King. Answer riddle. It's typewriter again. Examine chalice. Chalice was a fancy type of cup. They had to put all the potion ingredients in there to create the potion. Then the chalice were a forever fern, a cauliflower, and some mummy's dust. East once more to the haunted house. Examine garden. Examine stone. Look under stone. Look behind house. Oh, east to the cherry orchard. They followed the path to a hill covered in cherry trees. To the west of the cherry orchard was a haunted house. There was one magic cherry hanging from a branch. Take cherry. Examine it. Lena and Garen looked at each other and said, "This must be the last ingredient. Put it in chalice." They put the magic cherry into the chalice. Now they had all 4 ingredients. They mixed the potion and brought it to Chloe. Chloe drank it, and her eyes lit up, and she said she felt fine. But the Banshee knew that her curse was cured, and she swore that she would have revenge. The end. Daniela Florence bows, and the sitting room is filled with the sounds of applause. The kids eat it up. The moderator steps up to the dais. "I must say, that was pretty scary, boys and girls. Are there any questions from our audience?" "Yes," someone says. "My question is for the teacher. Why are you here? Why did you bring a bunch of little kids to a meeting of adult horror authors in the middle of the night?" Miss Shiraiwa glances around the room and catches my eye, and I can see the exact moment when she decides to throw me under the bus. "It was Ryan's idea, actually," she says. Someone mutters something. But the moderator has my back for once. "I'm sure it is indeed very much past these young authors' bedtimes," he says, "so I think we will bid them bonsoir after we've given them one more round of applause. Everyone can get behind this, and Miss Shiraiwa leads a beaming procession of students out into the hall while avoiding eye contact with me. Bye, Hina." Okay, the moderator now stands alone on the dais. There's an odd energy in the room. People are chattering behind us. I halfway get up in my seat and crane my neck to look around the room. Hold on. Where's Allison Chase? Is she not here this year? Why the heck did we come all the way out here if Allison Chase isn't doing a story? "Our revels are at an end," the moderator says. "I'd like to thank all of our presenting authors for their contributions. Of course, I thank all of you, presenters, or not, for attending. Before we depart, though, I have something of a personal note." He clears his throat solemnly. Then there is a crash of thunder. The fireplace is snuffed out, and Castle Balderstone is plunged into darkness. The game session has ended. So this may seem kind of anticlimactic? That's the word I'm trying to think of. A little anticlimactic to end on the children's story and the allusion to the fact that Miss Chase is not presenting this year when clearly she should be if we understand our patterns. Well, I am here to tell you that there is a secret to this game, but if you want to figure that out, you'll have to do so on your own. There are resources available for you if you do not know how to go about it. I encourage you to look at the Interactive Fiction Database if need be to find out the secret and learn the horrible truth of Castle Balderstone's several other tales. For now, I want to thank you so much for watching my stream as we played through these. I've been Jay Essen. The last game we will definitely not be able to get through in a single session, so it looks like this is probably going to extend through the end of the month, but we'll see. All in good time. Thank you again, and have a lovely day.